Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time talking to folks mid-career, and the question comes up in most all interviews, what kind of money are you looking for? So how are you going to deal with that? Let's talk about it this time through. First off, understand that the question, it can be a buying signal if it happens toward the end of the interview. If it happens early in the interview, very often it's a screen-out mechanism on the part of the employer. And so it does matter a little bit, at least psychologically for you, to know when that question is thrown at you. But I like to use the analogy of a stoplight. If you can picture a stoplight with the red, yellow, and green lights. I like analogies. They help you to remember things, at least they do for me. And sometimes when the pressure's on in an interview and you're trying to recall sort of what do I need to do here, structure is an important thing, and if you can recall the stoplight, I think it might help you. In driving, the red light means stop and deal with it. Don't go anywhere. Yellow means you can proceed, but with a little bit of alteration, maybe just slow down, be a little more aware of your surroundings. And a green light typically just means keep on going. So with that in mind, the question is, what are you looking for? Early on, the green light for me anyway is to say the answer, in effect dodging the question, but you give an answer, and then change the subject. So for example, you might say, well, I think like anyone, I'd certainly look to be paid based on my skills and experience and based on the job content. I'm sure we'll be able to work something out, and then talk about something else about the job. Maybe ask them a question about something they talked about a few moments ago. If it comes up a little bit later in the interview, now you can progress to the yellow light. And again, you can always move from green to red if you kind of get those sweaty palms and feel like you've got to give them a range or give them something. But the yellow light is to acknowledge the question again and turn around and ask them what they had in mind. After all, they brought it up. You'd be surprised. If you only ask them, they might tell you what that job is likely to pay. So for example, somebody says, what are you looking for? Well, I'd look to be paid based on my skills and experience and based on what the job is likely to pay given the scope of the duties. Very simple, very easy. Then what you do is turn around and ask them what they had in mind. And lastly, the red light is to give them a range, is to say, well, I understand what you're looking for. I feel like I'm a good fit. And based on my understanding of the position and looking at my skills, I'd envision something in the range of boom to boom. How does that fit in with what you had in mind? Now, the range, you don't want to name numbers specific. Worst thing you can do is say 52,000. Next worst thing you can do is to name a range with hard numbers at the ends of it. For example, 48 to 55. Don't do that. The employer only hears 48. So if you get an offer, it won't be much more than 48, 49, typically. What I would do is I would pick a range, the bottom of which is at or slightly above where you really feel this position ought to come in at. So not a pie in the sky and not getting lowball, but just where you think this thing should work out. And use phrases like mid, low, high, upper. So you might say mid-40s to mid-50s. Mid-40s gives you a little bit of wiggle room. It's not saying 45 because mid-40s could be anywhere from 44 to 46, maybe even a little farther out on both ends. So that's a way to handle the money question. Remember, after you've been forced to, in effect, show them your cards, you need to ask them, how does that fit in with what you were thinking? And that's going to wrap it up for this segment in our Edge Library series, talking to folks mid-career and handling that question of what are you looking for money-wise. Thanks for watching. I'm Randy Wooden.